The Mourning of Muharram, Remembrance of Muharram, or Muharram Observances, is a set of rituals associated with Shia Islam, which takes place in Muharram, the first month of the Islamic calendar. Many of the events associated with the ritual take place in congregation halls known as Hussainia. Majlis in Dar Salaam, Tanzania. The event marks the anniversary of the Battle of Karbala when Imam Hussein ibn Ali, the grandson of Muhammad, and a Shia Imam, was killed by the forces of the second Umayyad caliph Yazid I at Karbala. Family members, accompanying Hussein ibn Ali, were killed or subjected to humiliation. The commemoration of the event during yearly mourning season, from 1st of Muharram to 20th of Safar with Ashura comprising the focal date, serves to define Shia communal identity. At present, Muharram observances are carried out in countries with noteworthy Shia population, including Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, Lebanon, India, and Bahrain. The words Azadari, which mean mourning and lamentation, and Majlis have been exclusively used in connection with the remembrance ceremonies for the martyrdom of Imam Hussein. Majlis also known as Hussein, includes mourning congregations, lamentations, matam, and all such actions which express the emotions of grief and above all, repulsion against what Yazid stood for. The term Majlis has both a grammatical meaning and a meaning which relates to Hussein. In its technical sense, a Majlis is a meeting, a session, or a gathering. According to Shia sources, the Azadari of Muharram was started by the family of Muhammad, the Al-Bayt, after the death of his grandson Hussein ibn Ali at the Battle of Karbala in 680 AD. Following the Battle of Karbala, Muhammad's granddaughter Zainab bint Ali and sister of Imam Hussein, began mourning for the fallen and making speeches against Imam Hussein ibn Ali's opponents, Ibn Ziyad and Yazid I. News of Imam Hussein ibn Ali's death was also spread by Imam Zainul Abidin, who succeeded Imam Hussein as the Shia Imam, via sermons and speeches throughout Iraq, Syria and Hejaz. Zainab and Imam Zainul Abidin informed the people that Yazid had martyred Imam Hussein and 72 of his companions including his 6-month-old son Ali Asghar, and that their women and children were taken as prisoners to Syria. When word of mourning reached Yazid, he decided to release the captive women and children from the prison in Damascus, out of fear of public revolt against his rule. He sent for Imam Zainul Abidin, informed him of the impending release and asked if he wished for anything further. Imam Zainul Abidin said he would consult with Zainab. She asked Yazid to provide a place where the people could mourn for Imam Hussein and others of Muhammad's household. A house was provided, and here Zainab bint Ali held the first Majlis of Imam Hussein and started the mourning of Muharram. History of commemoration. The mourning and commemoration for Imam Hussein ibn Ali originated in Iraq, as this is where Imam Hussein was martyred. However, they were held in Iran as early as the 12th century, when both Sunnis and Shias participated in them. In the Safavid period, the annual mourning ceremonies for Imam Hussein, combined with the ritual cursing of his enemies, acquired the status of a national institution. Expressions of grief such as Sinzani, beating the chest, Zangarzani, beating oneself with chains, and Tajzani or Kamazani, also known as Tatbir, hitting oneself with swords or knives, emerged as common features of the proliferating mourning processions, Dastagardani. Mourning for the martyred Imam also takes place in assemblies held in buildings erected especially for the purpose, known either as Hussainia or Taqiyya, as well as in mosques and private houses. In Lucknow, India, the Muharram processions and rituals are known as Azadari. The processions, including the Chup Tazia, have been observed since the 16th century or earlier, when Lucknow was capital of the state of Awadh. In the 20th century, beginning in 1906, Azadari became a focus of communal tension in Lucknow. In 1977, after riots broke out for the fourth time since 1968, the government of Uttar Pradesh banned the Azadari processions. Shia leaders protested the ban, and many Shia Muslims courted arrest by defying the ban each year. In 1997 a hunger strike was launched to protest the Azadari ban. In April 3 Shia youths committed self-immolation and died. A noted Shia scholar called for a peace march on April 18, 1997 that reportedly drew more than 200,000 Shias. Late in the year, after months of arrests and clashes between police and protesters, the government granted limited permission for Shias in Lucknow to hold Azadari processions. How the event is mourned differs between different branches of Shia and different ethnic groups. The event is also observed by many Sunnis, but to a lesser extent, and as a time of remembrance, rather than mourning. In the 12 or 3 traditional schools, Usuli, Akbari, and Shaikhi, mourners, both male and female, congregate, in separate sections, for sorrowful, poetic recitations performed in memory of the death of Hussein, lamenting and grieving to the tune of beating drums and chants of Ya Hussein. Passion plays are also performed, reenacting the Battle of Karbala and the suffering and death of Hussein at the hands of Yazid. They offer condolences to Imam Zamana, also known as Imam al-Mahdi, whom they believe will avenge the blood of Hussein and bring justice to the world. Batashis and Alavis also mourn, and they keep themselves from eating and drinking, fasting, the first 10-12 days of Muharram. In this period, the Alavis wear black clothes, do not shave themselves and avoid any type of entertainment and pleasure. Originally, it was also forbidden to bathe and change clothes during this period, but today most Alavis do not follow this rule. This is called Muharram Madami, Yasai Muharram or Muharram Oraku. But because it is also called fasting, many people falsely think that Alavis celebrate the Muharram. The definition of the fast in this connection is different from the normal type of fasting. Batashis also greet each other by saying Ya Imam, Ya Hussein. The only Ismaili group which mourns are the Mustali, who mourn similarly to the majority of 12ers. Although, Nazari Ismaili commemorate Muharram through the tradition of not celebrating marriages, birthdays, and other religious celebrations during this time to show respect to their other Muslim brothers who are mourning. For the duration of the remembrance, it is customary for mosques to provide free meals, nazar, on certain nights of the month to all people. These meals are viewed as being special and holy, as they have been consecrated in the name of Imam Hussein, and thus partaking of them is considered an act of communion with Allah, Imam Hussein, and humanity. Muharram procession. Shia Muslims in Malir, Karachi, Sindh, Pakistan flagellated themselves during the Muharram procession to commemorate the martyrdom of Imam Hussein, grandson of Muhammad. In South Asia, a number of literary and musical genres, produced by both Shias and Sunnis, that have been inspired by the Battle of Karbala are performed during the month, such as Marsiya, Noha, and Soz. This is meant to increase the people's understanding of how the enemies fought the Battle of Karbala against Hussein and his followers. In Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica, all ethnic and religious communities participate in the event, locally known as Hosai or Hussai. In Indonesia, the event is known as Tabik, Minangkabau language, or Tabat, Indonesian. Many Shia also tend to embark on a pilgrimage to the Imam Hussein shrine in Karbala itself, as it is one of the holiest places for Shias outside of Mecca and Medina. Up to 1 million pilgrims a year visit the city to observe the anniversary of Imam Hussein ibn Ali's death. The shrine is located opposite that of Imam Abbas ibn Ali. Matam. The Arabic term matam refers in general to any act or gesture of mourning. In Shia Islam the term designates acts of lamentation for the martyrs of Karbala. Many of the male and female participants congregate in public for ceremonial chest beating, matam, as a display of their devotion to Imam Hussein and in remembrance of his suffering. In some Shia societies, such as those in Bahrain, Pakistan, India, Afghanistan, and Iraq, some male participants incorporate knives or razors swung upon chains into their matam. There are 2 basic forms of matam. One form of mourning is the theatrical reenactment of the Battle of Karbala. In Iran this is called taziyah or taziyat. Theatrical groups that specialize in taziyah are called taziyah groups. Taziyahs were popular through the Qajar dynasty until the early 20th century, but the reenactments slowly declined until they were mostly abandoned in the large cities by the early 1940s. Nonetheless, taziyahs continued to exist in Iran on a smaller scale, especially in more rural and traditional areas. Reza Shah, the first of the Pahlavi dynasty, had outlawed taziyas. Despite some attempts since 1979, Muharram processions and various forms of the Raza Khani are still more common. In South Asia, where dramatic commemorations are less significant, taziya came to refer specifically to the miniature mausoleums used in processions held in Muharram. It all started from the fact that the great distance of India from Karbala prevented Indian Shias being buried near the tomb of Imam Hussein or making frequent pilgrimages, ziyarat, to the tomb. This is the reason why Indian Shias established local Karbalas on the subcontinent by bringing soil from Karbala and sprinkling it on lots designated as future cemeteries. Once the Karbalas were established on the subcontinent, the next step was to bring Hussein's tomb shrine to India. This was established by building replicas of Hussein's mausoleum called taziya to be carried in Muharram processions. Thousands of taziyas in various shapes and sizes are fashioned every year for the months of Mourning of Muharram and Safar, and are carried in processions and may be buried at the end of Ashura or Arban. Surely, there exists in the hearts of the mu'mineen, with respect to the martyrdom of Hussein, a heat that never subsides. Muhammad said, "O Fatima! Every eye shall be weeping on the day of judgment except the eye which has shed tears over the tragedy of Hussein, for surely, that eye shall be laughing and shall be given the glad tidings of the bounties and comforts of paradise." Imam Ali ibn Hussein said, "Every mu'min, whose eyes shed tears upon the killing of Hussein ibn Ali and his companions, such that the tears roll down his cheeks, God shall accommodate him in the elevated rooms of paradise." Imam Ali said to Ibn Abbas, "Once when he happened to pass by Karbala, Prophet Isa, Jesus, sat down and began to weep. His disciples who were observing him, followed suit and began weeping too, but not comprehending the reason for this behavior, they asked him, 'O Spirit of God, what is it that makes you weep?' Prophet Isa, Jesus, said, 'Do you know what land this is?' The disciples replied, 'No.' He then said, 'This is the land on which the son of the Prophet Muhammad shall be killed.'" Origin and reason for mourning. Zainab bint Ali, sister of Imam Hussein, after Karbala vowed that as long as the people do not recognize the actual cause of Karbala, the followers of Imam Hussein will continue to protest on the streets and in the dwellings as to what happened in Karbala. She organized first Majlis, mourning assembly, while still in Damascus in honor of Imam Hussein. Though besides Sunnis some Shias do not know that it is a protest and invitation to people to come and listen to mourners as to what happened in Karbala. It is believed by some non-Shias that Imam Hussein's journey to Karbala was to claim his imamate over the people of Kufa who had written letters inviting him to Kufa, whereas per Shia's belief Imam Hussein knew he was to be killed there. He undertook this journey to deny his approval or bay'at to Yazid becoming caliph because he considered Yazid to be a danger to the Muslim Ummah and a threat to Islam. His sacrifice and revolution were to preserve Islam and his grandfather's Ummah against the innovation, hypocrisy, wickedness as well as the attempts to destroy and alter Islam and the quest for worldly pleasures and worldly gains by Yazid and his people.